The journey that produced this presentation started a little over a year ago with my first speech in Toastmasters, which is known as the icebreaker. Now, as I stood in front of that audience, my first audience, I proclaimed that I would tell them how to conquer an elephant. And I would demonstrate that by telling them how I would conquer mine. Now, can you guess what the elephant is? I identified my elephant as my stutter. It's the biggest challenge and obstacle that I have ever faced in my life, and I still face it today. Now, this is a presentation that I had given, that I've given multiple times during this past year. But something has changed about it. I made a small change in this presentation that represented a major shift in my mindset. I changed what the elephant is. Now, at some point in time, I came to a realization that my stutter was not, in fact, my elephant, and that the true elephant in my life right now, and that has always been, is fear. Now, that fear may have been as a result of my stutter, but certainly the ultimate challenge in my life was the fear itself. And this is why. By choosing my stutter as my elephant, I chose an elephant that I could never fully conquer. I may be able to manage my stutter to a certain extent at some times better than at others, but at the end of the day, I am a person who stutters. So I chose something that was not fully in my control. So by now identifying my elephant as fear, I have put myself in the driver's seat and in full control of my future and the progress that I want to make going forward. And that choice is what led to fear factors, the causes and consequences of fear. Now, since I made that choice to correctly identify my elephant, I decided to go back and look at my past and look at how fear had impacted me, the decisions that I made, the goals that I set for myself. And I realized that fear had a truly devastating impact on my life. And what I came up with are the 5 fear factors. And these are 5 ways that I have identified how fear can behave in and impact our lives. And I will walk you through all 5 of these to better equip you to confront and conquer fear in your life. So let's get started with number 1. First, fear is deceptive. As I started to think back on situations that fear had really affected me, I thought about when I gave my graduate thesis. I presented to an audience of about 8 people, 3 of my professors, and about 5 or 6 of of my classmates that were also in the cohort program. And leading up to that moment of getting in front of them and presenting, I felt an overwhelming amount of fear and really terror, almost to the point that I felt like I would pass out at some point in time. And at that moment, I realized that I had more fear over presenting to a group of 8 people than I did when I jumped out of an airplane at 14,000 feet. I'll say it again. I had more fear of speaking in front of 8 people than jumping out of an airplane at 14,000 feet. That makes absolutely no sense. What is the worst case of completely falling apart and failing as I presented my thesis? What's the worst case? Okay, I wouldn't graduate. That's terrible. But in contrast, what is the worst case if something goes wrong at 14,000 feet while skydiving? You're dead. You're done. So the consequences did not match the amount of fear that I had with each situation. And that is the case for a lot of us. That fear has deceived us. It has convinced us that the consequences of a situation, of facing something, is much worse than it really is. For example, did you know that the number one most common fear amongst all people is public speaking? So if that's number one, then can you guess what number 2 is? It's death, which means that for most of us, we have more fear of the ball of a microphone than the barrel of a gun, and that is illogical, irrational. It makes no sense, and that level of irrational fear is what holds us back. And we have this fear in multiple areas of our lives, especially with dating and when dealing with the opposite sex. Now, for those of us who have a stutter, there is a bit more added pressure in this area, but for everyone, I believe that fear and anxiety is still there when you see someone that you are attracted to, and an attractive woman or a handsome man that you would like to go talk to, spark up a conversation with, and create some sort of connection. And at some point in time, it doesn't even matter how open or how friendly that person will look, but all you see is possible rejection, ridicule, and embarrassment. And that's all internal. It's completely independent of what the reality of the situation is, but it's completely fueled and created by your mind and the baggage and the past that you carry along with you. Now, we also do this with opportunities that we have in our lives. I guarantee you that a great deal of you who are watching this presentation have some kind of great golden opportunity in front of you right now, but you have a lot of fear in accepting and chasing that, because it will require you to endure some measure of discomfort. So right now there is a rainbow that is leading you to a pot of gold, but all you see is the storm that you have to go through in order to get to it. And some of us do this in all areas of our lives. For a great deal of us, we cannot see our lives clearly at all as a result of our vision being clouded by fear, doubt, anxiety. Everything that we see, whether it's positive or negative, is clouded by fear. But what if you could see your life more clearly and vividly? What if your vision of your life was not clouded by fear? What would you see? Would you dream bigger? Would you aim higher? Would you see opportunities and be willing to go after them because you are more focused on the result that you are trying to obtain, a lot more so than the fear that you have to confront to get there? And I have a phrase that I want you to sit that I want you to repeat with me. Clear of fear. Clear of fear. Whenever you are faced with a decision, a challenge, an obstacle, an opportunity, I want you to ask, what is fueling my approach to this? Is my view of this, is it clear of fear? Or is my approach being fueled and prompted by the fear that I have over what I am about to encounter? And you know what fear is. Fear has been known as false evidence appearing real. But I heard a more appropriate definition for myself in my life, which is false expectations appearing real. Because often the fear that we feel is based on a false expectation that we will have to deal with as a result of that situation. It's not real. It's not based in reality. It's based entirely on what is in our head, based on our past experiences. And if this fear is left unchecked in your life, the next factor will turn it into a silent killer in your life. And that is, fear is contagious. Now, when I think about fear being contagious in our lives, I think about the Titanic. I saw a special on the Titanic that gave a breakdown of what structural characteristics about the ship actually led to it sinking. Now, the Titanic actually sank for the same reason that it was thought to be unsinkable, and that is its lower compartments. The lower compartments of the Titanic were all sealed off from each other. There was a sealed door in between each compartment, so that if one was ruptured and flooded, then the other ones would remain protected. But the problem is that those compartments were not capped. So when the iceberg actually hit the Titanic and the compartments began to flood, instead of it being contained, it just spilled over from one compartment to the next until it drug it down into the water. Now you might ask, okay, that is interesting, but what does the Titanic have to do with my life and my fear? Well, there are two lessons that can be learned from the sinking of the Titanic. First is icebergs are unexpected. They come out of nowhere. They are guaranteed in your life. At any point in time in your life, your current situation can be turned upside down by an iceberg, which could come in the form of a divorce, a health problem, an accident, a death, a sick child, a bankruptcy, a lawsuit. Just anything could come your way at any point in time and completely turn your life upside down. And you will never see it coming until it's already happened and taking its toll on you. 2, if you think that you can let fear run rampant in one part of your life and it not affect anything else, then you are wrong. Whatever comfort zone or boundaries that you think that you have created to keep your fear in a certain boundary or compartment in your life, it will not work. Our lives are not capped off from each other. They are all connected and they all affect and impact each other. So if you have fear with speaking and you give in to that fear and stay silent and stay safe and avoid the fear and let it control you, I guarantee you that choice is having an impact on other areas of your life, your career, relationships, family, your confidence, whatever. It is not isolated. And I know, and I know because I came to this realization, to this exact same realization over the course of this past year. When I joined Toastmasters and started to dive into my fear and really challenge myself to confront my fear, I thought that it was just one. I thought that I only had to deal with the fear of my voice and my speech impediment, but I was wrong. As I dug into it, I realized that by accepting fear in this one area of my life, it impacted others. And as a result, I had to identify other areas in my life where fear was a challenge and something that I had to confront. I started off with 1, and now I have 10 that I now have to to confront and conquer it in my life. So if you think that your fear is isolated and separated in a certain area of your life, I challenge you to take an inventory of how you live right now, the choices you make, and see if that fear has impacted other parts of your life and how you live. Now what I want to do is I want you to take a second and look over these questions. And I want you to do this to get the full impact of this presentation. I want you to go through all these questions and be honest about your answers, and think about the deceptive nature of fear in your life, and if you in fact do have an irrational fear that drives your decision making and how you live your life. I want you to think about if fear that you have given into in one area has infected other areas of your life. So take a minute to read over these questions, answer them honestly, and then I'll come back and we'll continue. Now, I want you to picture the sinking of the Titanic. I want you to visualize one end of the ship being pulled down into the ocean, and under the weight and pressure of now being in the vertical position, it breaking apart into two pieces. That is what fear does to us. Fear is divisive. At some point in time, I realized that I had a lot of internal conflict. It seemed as if it was two very different people inside me at the very same time. On one side, it was a person that wanted to dream big, set high standards and goals, chase opportunity, and believe that anything is possible. And on the other side is a person that wanted to chase stability and safety, and wanted to be realistic about what I could achieve in my life. Fear divides you into two people: who you are and who you want to be. And trust me, these two do not get along. It's like watching the Republicans and Democrats in Congress. It's complete gridlock. And the reason is because those two opposing identities have a different set of goals, have different visions for your life, and a different set of values. So how do two individuals, two identities coexist in the same place with all those differences? They can't, not peacefully, because what I realized is that the amount of internal discord and conflict that was going on as a result of not being able to choose an identity. and on being able to decide who I wanted to be caused a level of conflict that led to anxiety and stress, and ultimately me not being able to get any sleep at night. What I learned is that you cannot cower and conquer at the exact same time. These two forces, these two identities cannot coexist and create a healthy mindset for you at the same time. So you have to choose who you are or who you want to be. And because if you don't, then it's anarchy and chaos inside your mind, inside your spirit, in your soul, and in your heart. And that can destroy you from the inside out. There's a quote that I love by Ralph Waldo Emerson in Self-Reliance. And it reads that nothing can bring you peace but yourself. Nothing can bring you peace but the triumph of principles. And how I interpret this is, who are you? What do you believe? And are those two reflected in your life? Basically, are you actually who you think and say you are? Otherwise, you are betraying yourself. If you have different and opposing identities and values, you can't honor both at the exact same time. So one of those you betray on a daily basis. And that's not peace. That's dissonance and discord internally and in your life. So the only way to true peace and fulfillment is to undo the divisiveness of fear and pick an identity and pick a system of values for yourself and stick to it and allow it to manifest and triumph in your life. And the way that you manifest your principles and values in your life is by taking action, which leads to fear factor number 4. Fear is comparable. There's a quote that I love, and it goes, "Thinking will not overcome fear, but action will." Now, you can think that one day that your fear will just go away and then you can do what you want to. Some people have said to me, I want to do certain things, but I just got to get over the fear. It doesn't work that way. You get over the fear as you're confronting it through taking action. And when you do that, you take the steps in the action that you've already taken and succeeded in, and you build on it. That's why I said that fear is comparable. You can conquer fear by taking a look at what you've already accomplished and succeeded in and building on that. For example, people have told me that, Derek, you are a superstar in Toastmasters. Well, I'm going to tell you something about your superstar. There is nothing special about me at all. It took me 4 long years to finally make a commitment to joining Toastmasters and finally confronting all the fear and anxiety around my speech and my stutter. And even when I joined, I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because someone offered to sponsor me. And I thought that if I said no, that it would have a negative impact on my reputation at work. And I didn't want that. So I did it because I wanted to enhance and not tarnish the professional reputation that I had taken time to build for myself. But nonetheless, I still did it. I said yes. And 6 months later, I went from being afraid to even sit in a meeting to speaking on stage to a couple hundred people at a district speech conference. Now, I don't say this to impress you. I say this to impress upon you, as they say. Impress upon you that all you have to do is take one small step, one small action, and you have no idea what that can lead to, what you can build on that foundation. So I encourage you to just think about what the next step is that you need to take in confronting your fear. It could be making a phone call. It could be sending an email, writing a proposal, or even showing up at an office to make an inquiry about something. But whatever that small step is, take that and build on it. Don't take it for granted. When you do it, you celebrate it, you give yourself the credit for doing it, and you build upon it. Now, another round of questions for you. And as you read and answer these, I want you to think about the discord and the internal conflict that fear has caused in your life when you have not done things that you know that you should have and that you actually wanted to do. And also think about what is the next step that you have to take to either start or continue to confront and conquer your fear. And also think about your past, what you already have done, what you already have accomplished and conquered, and use that as a resource and as leverage to go forward. Because if you have done it in the past, you can do it right now and going forward in the future. Fear factor number 5. Fear is fantasy. Regret is responsibility. Now, I want you to think about the last time you faced something that you were afraid of. Whether it was giving a presentation at work, jumping out of an airplane, or asking a person out on a date. I want you to think back and think about how your heart was beating, your pulse getting more and more elevated by the second. And then think about when you spoke that first word, made that first introduction, how did it feel? Did the fear continue to escalate and increase, or did it begin to subside? As with fear in most cases, once you take that first step, it seems to break some sort of a barrier, and the fear slowly, if not instantaneously, disappears. And this is why I say that fear is a fantasy. It's not real. It's empty. There's nothing of significance or value inside your fear at all. It's completely empty and a figment of your imagination. Now, what's on the other side, if you don't face your fear and give into it, is regret. And from my experience, that is very real, because regret turns into something that you have to fight off and manage and control on a daily basis once you have given fear a foothold in your mind and in your life. And I'll give you an example. Most people at some point in their lives as a teenager have been to a dance, a prom, a homecoming, some sort of formal event that is a rite of passage of all teenagers. Well, I haven't. I was so afraid of talking to a girl or anyone for that matter in elementary, in junior high, in junior high, and in high school, that I never found the courage to ask a girl out to any sort of formal event. I robbed myself. I cheated myself of those experiences. And that's something that I still regret to this day. And that's something that I also have to continue to manage as well. Because every spring, when it's prom season, I watch all the young kids who are dressed up in their formal wear, who are so excited about going out to dinner and being in a limo and going to dance with all their friends. And I think about what I didn't get a chance to experience. And I think about if I would have just taken a chance and made that move and faced the fear of being ridiculed and rejected. That is one less regret that I would have to deal with right now, because it is a responsibility. It is something that you have to fight off. There are other thoughts that you have to take control over when they come up. Otherwise, it can have a negative impact on your mindset. And what is the benefit? Yes, I saved myself some embarrassment in that moment, but I traded it in for a lifetime of regret. So as we go into this last round of questions, think about the regret that you have in your life. Think about opportunities that you have missed out on, things that you have passed up, and ask yourself, was it worth it? Was escaping the fear and discomfort in that moment, was it worth the amount of regret that you are left with? Think about that, and I'll finish up with one last thought. Now, I want you to think about all your fear, all your regret, and why it exists. Why have you let fear take control of your life? Why did you not take advantage of that opportunity? Why did you not pursue that person that you were interested in? Why did you not take that trip that you wanted to take? Did you think that you had something to lose by confronting your fear? Do you think that you have something to gain by giving into it? What I want you to understand is that whatever you think that you have to truly lose by confronting your fear, you don't. There is no risk in facing your fear. You have nothing to lose, because the most important thing that you will ever have, you will certainly lose at some point in time. And the last point that I want to make, and I want you to sit with me, is that I am going to die. Period. The mortality rate is 100%. There is no amount of fear that you can avoid. There's no amount of risk that you can mitigate that will add a single day to on your life. You, me, and everyone else that we know will die at some point. It's what you do about it that counts. I love this quote by Marcus Aurelius. It says that, do not act as if you had 10,000 years to throw away. Death stands at your elbow. Be good for something while you live, and it is in your power. Some of us are living our lives as if we have 1,000 years, then we die, then we'll come back and have 1,000 more. Our time is finite. It's limited. And you only have a short window to take the risk, to reach your goals, to manifest the vision that you have for your life. Because one day it will be over. And just think about this. What is the most precious thing that you will ever have in your life? It's your life. That is the most precious thing that you will ever own. And you will lose that. So with that in mind, what else are you holding on to that you can't bear to part with, to face your fear and to live your dreams? Are you holding on to comfort, security, and safety, for what? For what purpose? At some point in time, everything that is standing in your way, that you are holding on to, that is preventing you from living your dreams and conquering your fear, you will lose. The one thing about life is that it is constantly changing. And all the things that you use as an excuse to hold you back right now might be completely irrelevant or already taken out of your possession by this time next year. So what are you holding on to? The only way to be your best self, to live your dreams, to have what you want out of life is to face your fear. Because only when we are no longer afraid do we begin to live.